Good morning, everybody. It is time for Caffeine Corner. First of all, hey, Chess, make sure that I did this right in my title for this particular episode. Did I say anything about non sequitur?
No.
No. Y'all people gotta read, man. Yeah,
Listen, everybody's just
I
excited. Don't
know.
be
I
mad at
appreciate it.
them.
It's not clickbait. We are going to be going over new stuff, just actual new stuff. But, anyways, good morning.
I like to think that most of the time we're pretty darn clear when we're
Yeah.
talking about non sequitur directly.
Well,
So
yeah, I mean, I
no,
did do it on purpose. I want to call it clickbait, but I wanted to see if people could differentiate. But anyways, hey, real quick, I want to throw this out there. I found out this morning. I was on my Facebook, and I found out that a lot of other shows have this warning that the mods will do all the time, saying something along the lines of, "Hey, don't really talk about the appearance of the host or anything like that. I guess it's frowned upon." But I want to let you guys know,
it
not only
is.
compliments to our appearance appreciated, it's obligatory and mandatory every so often. So just let you guys know,
I
free to do it.
require that all questions directed towards me are required to be phrased as a compliment.
Exactly. I've turned myself up a little bit. People said I was a little low, so hopefully I'll fix that. But yeah. I thought it was kind of odd because I've seen that before too. You say, hey, that's a really cool shirt. Now I'm just in a robe today. It's cold this morning. It's Caffeine Corner early in the morning. I'm just drinking my coffee and I'm just chilling because that's what this whole thing is supposed to be about. But I mean, all these other shows don't say anything about the looks of the host, and I'm like, I don't give a shit. Say I'm hot, ugly, I don't know, whatever, man. Hey, Steve, cut your hair. You look like a dweeb. It doesn't bother me. I don't
I
care.
like I like Steve's hair today. It's poofy.
Well,
It's got
it's
some
blow dry. This
volume.
is what happens when I don't flat iron. See, it's if I condition it right, and I don't flat iron, but I blow dry it. This is how it comes out, and my mom likes this. I prefer it like flat iron or like a Brazilian blowout, but I realize it doesn't have any of the volume. Right, so it's a trade-off. I'm getting more used to this, but it's really poofy. So, what do you think? Which way should I go?
I like the poofy.
You like the poofy? All right. Well, I'll let the audience decide. You guys like the poofy or the straight? Because again, it's just
One in the chat, two in the chat.
three to get rid of it all. Josiah Hanson, $2, just testing a new debit card. It works, Josiah. I was thinking about you today, Josiah, by the way, earlier this morning. I have your book sitting right there, and I've been trying to thumb through it. And eventually I just got to start reading the whole thing from start to finish. But I was thinking of you today because he had sent me a book to read, and I like that because I like to read. So yeah, it's not so much luxurious, Sinise, but it is soft. I mean, when I condition the shit out of it, it gets really, really soft, but it also gets really frizzy. And so I don't know if this is the way to
You
go.
should come up to Canada sometime in the winter, and you'll like take a towel away from your hair even when it's wet, and it'll just sparkle because of the static electricity. Just
That's awesome, actually. In Canada, because I figured it'd kind of be humid up there, and humidity kind of dampers.
so it depends on where you live in Canada, but a lot of the time during winter there is a lot of stuff. Like if you're wearing like a fleece sweater and you take that sweater off,
No, I know.
all of
I look. I live in dry heat, and I love the static electricity stuff. People are saying three. Okay, so everybody that said three, they're going to be timed out for indefinite
all
period of
banned,
time. Just kidding.
all of you.
Yeah, all of you that said three. I'm not cutting my hair. It took me too long to grow. But if you guys like if you guys like it this way, because this is easy for me, right? I mean, it's wash and wear. I don't have to sit there and flat iron. That
Hey,
takes time.
that's what I do with my hair most of the time. Mine's still wet.
Yeah, but you have the hair of an angel. You're young. It's got the carotene in it and creatine or whatever the hell carotene. Yeah, it's got natural oils, and your hair is not 50 years worth of damage to it. So
I mean, that's fair.
yeah,
Oh, I like RNGD Gaming is telling you to put on a man bun.
that will never happen. I have a thing against man buns. I think it should be eliminated from society. I don't know how that ever came about. Never will have a man bun. Braids are fine. I don't mind braids at all, and even cornrows. I'm cool with that, but I'm just not going to man bun it.
What about dreads?
Yeah, no. Well, the thing with dreads is dreads. You have to really know how to take care of dreads, right? I mean, that's a whole different, completely style of hair. That's more. It's not permanent per se, but you just don't take your dreads out every day, right? So, not
Yeah.
for me, but I find them attractive. If that makes sense.
Jamie for 5 said truth is a good kind of thing. A plus.
Thank you,
And
Jamie.
Justin said, I'm so here for the McPoof hairstyle. It's a mood.
Is that the whole thing? Is this for my hair? Does my hair have its own following? Because it's cool if it does. I mean, I don't mind. And by the way, thanks for Jamie Russell the other night was hanging out in the Drunken Peasants. We had a long show last night. It ran much longer than expected.
Oh, that's awesome. I was clicking through it a little bit, but not until after the show was over. Unfortunately, I missed it. I'm a bad friend.
No, I didn't watch your show the other day either, so we're definitely it's on my bucket list, okay? Because I'm not kidding, people. I literally had slept like 20 hours. In a 24-hour period. I was just like, I'm not doing f all. So,
yo, you got those days, man. Helios for 5 says, Chesh, how does it feel for you to be the prettiest hobbit and best friends with Gandalf's older brother?
See, we encourage people talking about our looks, good, bad, or indifferent. I don't care.
All questions in the form of a compliment.
Yes, it works perfect for us. Yes,
I like being friends with Steve, despite what some people might tell you.
We get along really well.
We get along well, and it's mostly a good time. I mean, we get contentious about some things once in a while, but like that's pretty natural, and it's not like. It would
be surprising if we didn't, though, wouldn't it be?
Right? That would be, there'd be something, I would find that suspect. Yes. I'd be like, that's sus. Fishy.
That's sus.
Somebody's sus. Can we do that? Can we do that for like maybe Halloween or one of the shows? We'll just dress up with blankets with little screens and we'll be...
Well, because you didn't watch last night, and so we did talk about you. Let's get the super chat read, and then I will talk to you about that real quick.
Rez for 100 because he's a sweetheart. Stitch, push the little red button.
Thank you, Rez. Thank you very much. Wait, is that from like Lilo and Stitch or Lilo and Stitch?
Lilo and Stitch, yeah.
Yeah. So we were talking about going up to Seattle, and I said, look, if I ever head up to Seattle, I've already made it on the conditions if Chesh comes with me, and obviously I think Joe has a little thing for you, maybe. Just saying, it just seemed that way. I mean, it's cute, it's adorable. I told him that I thought you still think he's Shabisky, but whatever. But yeah, so we were gonna hang out. So yeah, Joe was on fire last night. It was fun. Joe was giving me so much.
I mean, to be fair, if I go to Seattle, I do believe I did promise Billy and Ben that I would make poutine.
Yeah, well, that's again every given, and we were gonna go have scotch and stuff like that. So I would love to get up there. I really would like to visit those guys. It would be fun. They're really nice dudes. So
we'll have to wait for some nonsense, some Covfefe nonsense to chill out first.
I just want you to actually feel my hair and be able to say yes, it really is soft.
It really is a poofy cloud, just like it looks.
Yeah, another super chat.
It didn't come up for me. I do not see.
Want to wait or
there it is. Macabre for 5. Sorry, my chat's lagging a little bit, I guess. Macabre for 5 says, Dreadlocks, haven't you seen Predator 2 with Bill Paxton? Don't appropriate Predator culture. Those aliens come here to murder, not to be colonized.
I have seen Predator 2 and Predator 1, and they were really good. And you know what? I will culturally appropriate anything that I wish to culturally appropriate. Matter of fact, I think I've got that in the news today. That's actually funny you mentioned that, because that's one of the things that we got to go over. I got about 4 news things I want to talk about. She's got a few of them, and it's just basically us going to be doing news today, talking about what's been kind of going on in the world.
There's been a lot going on, and I think some stuff is just kind of flying under the radar with the Trump nonsense, impeachment nonsense, and whatever. It's like there's just been a lot of stuff that I think has just been like that's a little bit more lighthearted, like not too super duper heavy, because I don't think we have anything that like oh my god 7 people were killed. Like I don't think
I do the more I don't like to do those kind of things, right? I'm not here to like talk about tragedies.
Like cultural news rather than like
Mike has a good question though. He does want to know if make poutine is some kind of Canadian reference to a sexual act.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Billy and Ben are going to find out.
I mean, if you don't know what the sexual act is for making poutine, maybe come up with something and let us know what you come up with. Because my
favorite is still the Charizard.
I don't know what that is, but we were talking about I think it was Chicago Steamer last night and some other stuff, and I'm like, okay. They had actually mentioned one thing, and I had heard of what it was before, but I remember looking it up, and it was so vile that my brain has thus blocked it out again. if people watched Drunk Peasants last night. I don't remember even what the term was. That's how vile it was. But I'm not into all that hip stuff. All those names of things. I know what a Dutch oven is. That's about as creepy as I'll get. A Dutch oven. You know what that is?
Are you talking about like the farting Dutch oven, or what a different?
No, farting Dutch oven. Yeah. The other stuff they're talking about, I don't know what it was.
Places use different euphemisms, so sometimes you think one thing means one thing and one thing means another.
Yeah, well, most things have more than one thing, right? All right, you ready to dive into this? Oh, we got more?
Well, Jamie Russell asked me if I like Nutella. In small quantities. I will eat Nutella. I won't go out and buy Nutella, like it's not on my grocery list. But if somebody gives me a tub of Nutella, I will slowly go through that tub of Nutella.
I like Nutella, don't get me wrong, but a little bit goes a very long ways. But I did tell Chris Attlee and some other people that I would buy some, not Marmite, but the other stuff, the Vegemite, because I told him I'd try it again. I just don't know where to find it, but next time I'm out, I will find a little, because I'm not going to buy a lot of Vegemite because I probably won't like it. It's a waste. But I told him I'd give it a shot again because I've had it before. I thought it tasted like mold. But hey, you know, as you get older, tastes change, so you never know.
Steve, the chat's telling you to turn yourself up a little bit.
Okay. Is this better? I turned it up.
I think it's because we're just chill right now and nobody's really projecting. No, nobody's projecting. Once
we get going, Steve, there. So when I project, oh my God, then I go to the red there. So
yeah.
Right.
So yeah, what do you want to start with? Do you want to start with?
I really kind of want to start with the YouTube AI Blocks channel one.
Okay, yeah, do it. Go for it.
Make sure I get rid of the right thing here. Here we go. Is it right? Yeah, there we go. All right, so I found this to be interesting because everything's kind of going to the AI nowadays, and of course, YouTube's algorithm has a neuralistic thing, you know, for like learning, right? It's a neuro-linguistic programming kind of thing, or whatever it learns. It's a learning AI, but it's not a very good one yet.
It do a smirk.
It just doesn't know how to differentiate between good stuff and bad stuff, and I think that's a huge problem. And so this poor guy that had a pretty successful channel dealing with chess from like 4 years he's had it, just took off, and they were talking about black and white chess pieces. I mean, and they were talking about the different moves and using language that would be normally found in a chess match. And people in the live chat were putting these words in the live chat, and they thought it was some kind of racial thing, and the AI picked up as a racial thing, and of course, you know, temporarily, you know, took down that channel. Well, I didn't know. He got flagged? I don't know if he got took down, but the video at least got taken down. I don't know if his channel did. Did it? Because it just said it was incorrectly flagged. I'm not sure if that meant the whole channel or the video.
That could be kind of vague. I'm not sure. Do you know what's his name? I'll check his Twitter to see.
Antonia Radek, known as Agamator.
Thanks.
But service was restored 24 hours later. So I was assuming that his channel. Oh yeah, okay. Saw his channel blocked for including what the site called, quote, harmful and dangerous content. Chess is now harmful and dangerous content. Yes.
Yay.
That's pretty scary. So I was talking to Chess about I was talking about chess with Chesh last night, and she had some kind of ways to kind of maybe give YouTube some pointers on maybe how to fix their shit.
YouTube needs to use a tiered system. It's that simple. So essentially what happens is when you get like monetized or verified, they look at your channel, right? At least they say that they do. So whether that's a bot that does it or whether it's them getting a person to go through and do it, whatever, what they need to do is they need to start separating creators out. And as a creator climbs that ladder, they get more trust from YouTube, but probably more strict guidelines. So me and Steve probably wouldn't even be on the same tier level. So Steve broke 10 or broke 15, he would be on a different tier than I am. And as you go up that tier, you garner more trust with YouTube, which means you get more, like, YouTube's more likely to push what you're doing to like the front page or to the suggested, and in return they start to trust you when it comes to getting false flagged or getting taken down. You actually, if a bot flags your channel, the higher up on that poll you are, the more it actually gets investigated. The highest tier people would obviously actually end up just having a conversation about, okay, what happened? How did you, and that would be a good way to help update and teach the AI to be better, right? So you obviously wouldn't have a team of people that goes to every single flag. It's just not possible. But what you can do is if you have a limited of 100 or 1,000 channels that are at this top tier, that even if they get flagged, it pretty much gets ignored unless like something clicks, then, and YouTube would have to decide what would validate that click or not, and then have somebody go through and just watch that video. Yeah, and then if there is something wrong, then instead of just taking everything down, they go to that creator and say, hey, listen, obviously depending on the severity of what had happened.
Yeah, and I like that idea. And I also can't imagine it being that difficult to train a AI such that when it hears certain words in context with other words like pawn, knight, rook, bishop, and chess, it knows what it's talking about, right? So it doesn't just freak out and think it's something completely different than what it is. It knows it's an innocuous
Well, it is
thing.
also possible that if you were to do something like that, then people who are looking to signal or whistle, dog whistle towards racist would start using those terms so they wouldn't get flagged.
And I thought about that last night too, actually. That did cross my mind. And so it would kind of, mess with the AI. But the thing with that is that they would have, it would have to be like a whole new thing where they say like, hey, when we say pawn, we really mean this. When we see knight, we really mean this, right? Could they do that? Sure. But until they do, I think that most of them probably wouldn't waste their time doing that. But that's a bridge to cross.
I don't think you would do it using chess analogies. I think you would probably pick, there'd be other things that you would use, but that would be like a culture change within people being racist. And so you would just, as that happened, you would update the bot to be able to keep up.
Yeah.
Because the bot wouldn't be able, I don't think, you would have to have a very, very advanced AI for it to be able to recognize the difference between when somebody is talking about chess and when somebody is talking about some kind of racial attack or something like that, or like setting something up. That if you're basically speaking in code, so that way a bot doesn't flag you on YouTube, and that's a little bit absurd.
Well, I mean, isn't that this whole show? Everything we do is actually talking code. We're either talking about Canadian food or sexual things. We don't know which the code stands for. We never really worked it out. But every word we say actually means something completely different.
I mean, yeah, people. Depending on who you talk to, there's a lot of conspiracy theories out there about us. So
yeah, I mean, Poontine obviously means something completely different in a sexualized way, I'm sure. I just don't know what it is. Somebody probably knows, but I'm not quite sure I want to.
And Hypocrite makes a good point. They could just use any other code that would allow them to run the filter already. They're already doing it. The filter already is not doing what it's supposed to be doing. So yeah, you're absolutely correct. Yes.
Yeah, but you know what? Maybe the code wouldn't be as overtly offensive as people saying, extremely racist remarks, right? I mean, when people say something like extremely racist and they use certain words, that obviously the AI is going to pick up on, and it should. But I don't think that these racist people are going to spend a lot of time trying to implement some kind of code where knight, bishop, king, pawn to E4 is going to matter, some kind of new meaning.
I imagine it'd be something along the lines of like the same way the incels have terminology. When I went through and I looked at the incel dictionary, there were things in there that they considered racial slurs that I wouldn't consider a racial slur until they told me it was a racial slur.
Yeah, no, I agree.
You would have stuff like that. Stuff like that kind of happens naturally anyway, but to be so advanced that there's a code, I think you have a different problem already on your hands that there's nothing you're going to be able to do when it comes to the YouTube AI bot. There's a whole nother issue that YouTube's not going to be the person or the entity dealing with. I don't know, man. We got a super chat from Godless Scummer that says chess is like Tinder. I know a few openings, but continually struggle to put myself into mating position.
Queen's Gambit, yes. A few Gambit things, yes, exactly. So,
Oh, that's great.
anyways, I thought that was kind of interesting on that the AI just took down an entire channel because of that. It tells you how volatile the system is. I mean, many of us are
How
concerned
big the
about
channel
that.
was?
What's
Did it
that?
say how big this guy's channel
Oh,
was?
I think he's got probably, I'm guessing, reaching over 100,000, give or take.
I bet you any money if he was smaller, he wouldn't have gotten it fixed so quickly.
Oh, that might be true. But it made the news, right? And so YouTube is at least, I think, trying to fix her shit a little bit because
Yeah.
when you take down a channel of saying, "Hey, look, we messed up here. This was completely messed up by YouTube. This was obviously not this guy's fault." But it does
Simply
show there's a flaw in the system, and other content creators get pissed off by that stuff because we've all,
Yeah.
we've all been there. We've all had flags, and I've had to fight
Yeah.
YouTube many times, and I've always won. But there are people that
I
have
had
been
them
less
take one
fortunate.
of mine down, and I'm like, it shouldn't be. I'm right, but it was one of those. Why are you booing me? I'm right. And it's because I was talking about Trump's speech on the 6th, and they just took everything.
But you played
down
it, right? You actually played his speech.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I played clips of it.
Yeah, and that's what it detected. Yes.
Yeah. And I'm like, boo.
Speaking of Trump, I have one on Trump too.
I want to show everybody my shirt before we go on, though. My shirt's great today. I wanted to show you earlier, but I didn't.
Remember, you can compliment or criticize the looks of the host. It doesn't matter. I am not short. I am fun-sized.
I'm small.
Yeah, the last girl that I knew that actually had a very similar shirt, it was something along the lines of I'm not small, I'm fun size. We ended up going out. So I found out that she wasn't.
Are
quite
you
the
saying
case,
that because I'm wearing this shirt, I am therefore going to
available.
date Steve?
No, you're just available. You're just putting that out there.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It was at a bar, and I liked her shirt, and she was really small, and we've known each other ever since. So, anyways,
It should be illegal to sell this shirt in anything larger than a small.
Oh, yeah, it kind of has no purpose if it's extra large, right? But anyways, let's go into Trump. I like this. This actually is pretty good because I don't think people really know the full ramifications of this because Trump has been trying to prevent his tax returns from being released for the longest time, publicly or to the New York prosecutors.
4 years. It's been longer than he was president.
Long time. But do you remember that he actually promised that he would actually release them at some point? Remember that?
Of course he did.
We all know that.
Yeah.
Was a lie.
He made that part of his campaign when he was in 2016.
Yep. So the Supreme Court has actually come down and rejected Trump's effort to shield tax records from the New York prosecutors. Now, that doesn't mean that can be public. They haven't, I don't think, ruled on any kind of releasing to us peons. But if the New York prosecutors can get those tax records, that's good enough for me right now because there's got to be a lot of interesting things in there because he has denied making certain payments to certain women, especially more of a, I just would say, prostitution type situation, and he's denied that, and yet it would be in the financial records because he had his lawyer paid it off, like with Stormy Daniels. I think it was his lawyer.
Yeah.
So I think that was pretty interesting when I saw that.
Michael Cohen, I think it was.
It could have been Michael Cohen. Yeah. So, what do you think? What do you think, Chess? Because what is he going to go from there? I mean, once the Supreme Court says no, you're done. There's no other option. There's no other moves.
Well, the thing is that anybody I was talking about this over on that time of the month, this past Saturday. So if you're interested in a little bit more political talk, we were talking about this as like a more as sort of like the general conversation. We were talking about him getting impeached and that nonsense, and something that the prosecution had brought up, that the defense had brought up, was that the prosecution was only going after him so he couldn't run again because they're afraid of they shouldn't treat the American people that way, blah 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 blah. And it was like, there's a decent chance that Trump won't be able to run again anyway because he'll be a felon because of his taxes.
Yeah, or other reasons. Yeah, but yeah, I definitely agree with that. Although I do think the reason why they wanted the indictment, they wanted him to be found guilty in the Senate was for that very reason, and I don't have a problem with that. Now, he wasn't found guilty.
I don't even think that was actually the case. I think there's more to it than that, and I do think that it's like a matter of standard, and I also think there's a matter of showing very, very much outright on paper who is for and who is against the Constitution.
Oh, I
Because
agree.
their
I
main
agree.
argument was all about the Constitution, all about the Constitution. And the Republicans, particularly the Republican people,
Mhm.
not the people in Congress, I mean like people who are Republicans, are very much like the Constitution, the Constitution, the Constitution. And so the Republican Party plays on that rhetoric, and now you've got on paper them voting against the Constitution when all of the rhetoric that, or most of the argumentation that came from the prosecution was all about the Constitution. So now you've straight up got on paper for all of the Republican voters that the people that they've been voting for don't give a fuck about the thing that the people do care about, the reason why they were voted in the first place. Inkboy for 2 said, please don't lie to us, you are pocket-sized.
Yeah. She's highly she's highly zoomed in. Trust me.
I am a homunculus. And Exploratory Minds for 10 said, biggest problem with AI and especially algorithms is it can't recognize intended context and actually end up being the bully, like how haters take things out of context.
Yeah, exactly.
To a degree, yeah. I don't know if I would call it bullying, but yeah.
Well, I mean, it has the effect. It shuts down the people that, I mean, the people that usually fighting against stuff. Like, for example, if you tweet something out that was, you're retweeting something of a negative content. Same thing on Facebook. You know, you put something out and say, look, this is what I got from Facebook. This is, their threat to me. The person who made the threat doesn't seem to have anything happen to them. It's a person who retweeted or put on Facebook that they had a threat and then put it out there. It's like, okay, you've kind of lost the bigger picture here. I mean, you're not making the threat. You're showing the threat. Showing a threat is not the same as making a threat. Huge difference. And he's right. The AI does not have the ability to differentiate between the two. As far as what you're saying about the Constitution, the Republicans are all about the Constitution until the Constitution works against them.
Well, the Republican senators, like the Republicans that are voted in, I don't think the people that are voting for Republicans are the same way. I think probably that not.
But the senators need to be held accountable
because at least
the senators that voted for, they seem to got the political censure. They got the brunt of it for some reason, and yet the people that voted against it, nothing. And yet it was the people that voted to have him convicted, the ones that were, I think, up here upholding the intent of the Constitution and the intent of the clauses in there to say, hey, look, the president did some pretty crappy stuff. He needs to be held accountable for it. That's what it's for. Whether he's in office or not, we have every right to impeach a president. He was still in office when he was impeached. That means they can have the trial even after he leaves. There was nothing unconstitutional about that. So they already ruled on that.
Intrigue Feline and Helios both have something that I just want to touch on. Intrigue Feline was actually on that time of the month on Saturday, so if you want to go check that out and hear what they have to say, they brought up some really good points. And Helios said, being a felon doesn't disqualify somebody for running in presidency. You could theoretically run for president while serving your sentence, actually. Excuse me, what? I thought being a felon meant that you couldn't run for president. Was I wrong?
I don't think he could be a felon, but he can't. Well, he couldn't run again if he was convicted, because that had been in the Senate saying, hey, look, you have been now convicted of this crime. We are telling you cannot run again. They are allowed to do that. Now, I don't think he's going to run again anyways, especially 4 years from now. I mean,
I think more likely one of his kids will run.
Possibly. I
think that's more likely.
But don't you think he's tarnished that? The whole legacy and the dynasty that he probably thought for his kids.
Oh, you don't need him to tarnish it for them. They tarnish themselves just as badly by being inept garbage people. But that doesn't really matter.
That's what I'm saying. I don't think they have much of a shot. The Republican base that voted for Trump, I think they're very fickle. I think they're mercurial. I think they're so capricious. They're going to be like, oh, who's the next Messiah figure that comes along? They're not that loyal to Trump. 4 years
Praise be to Ivanka Trump.
She would probably do better than Trump, I think. Absolutely.
She would do better, yeah.
All right. Moving on to the next one.
Taxes.
I thought this one was kind of interesting. This was Disney Plus warns viewers that The Muppet Show includes offensive content. And I don't know if you guys remember back in the 70s. I'm not going to lie.
This one surprised me. I was like, wait, what did the Muppets do now?
Well, this was back in the 80s, the 70s, 80s? I don't know. It's really long. Yeah, 70s. So Disney Plus is warning viewers of some episodes of The Muppet Show that found, quote, negative depictions and, quote, negative Mistreatment of people and cultures. The variety show, which ran for 120 episodes in the 1970s and features puppet characters interacting with celebrity guests, was added to Disney's streaming service last week. Viewers are being shown warning labels before episodes. It says that, quote, including negative depictions and or mistreatment of people or cultures, adding that these stereotypes were wrong then, and they are wrong now. Now, here's my quick take on it, and then you can give me yours. Maybe some of the things might have crossed the line. I do agree that like things dealing with like minstrel shows, which was when people were in blackface and doing that kind of stuff. There's really no way to justify that. That stuff was racist because it was meant to harm people. It was to make people feel bad about their race and their culture. So I don't think there's a way to justify that. However, some of the other stuff, I think they read too much into it. If cultural appropriation has gone so far, and if you're not appropriating it to harm, if you're appropriating it to harm somebody and to mock them, I look at that's one thing, but that's not what a lot of people do. And I think intent matters. I think if you're doing something like wearing an Indian costume, not to stereotype them or not to harm Indian culture. We all grew up with cowboys and Indians kind of stuff, and it wasn't, I don't think, anything racist back then, and it wasn't intended to be. Do I understand now that people have a different outlook on that? I get it, but I still think it really matters your intent, and you cannot vilify people on these kind of the guests that they had on, or even the puppets themselves. You cannot vilify them and say, look, this was all back then, all racist, and even though it was wrong then, it's wrong now. Not necessarily so. That's my 2 cents.
They're not censoring it. They've gone out of their way to be like, listen, we're just gonna accept that these things happened and we're not gonna change the show, which is the same thing that I think Warner Brothers did with the Looney Tunes. They were like, listen, not everything here was appropriate. Not every joke is appropriate now as it was then, and so we're still gonna leave them for the sake of the show being what it was. And it's the same kind of thing here. And I'm fine with that for the most part. I mean, all you're going to do is like nitpick out what you think is appropriate and what you think isn't. There's also things that there's a difference between cultural appropriation and cultural appreciation. So like that woman that went to prom in a kimono. Mm-hmm. Or I don't even think it was a kimono. It was like a specific kind of traditional dress, and people were calling it a kimono, and they were wrong, and they were saying, you can't wear a kimono, you're white. And that. She was like, it's not a kimono.
Yeah, I remember that.
And so like that whole thing blew up. She was clearly doing it out of appreciation and learning and a love for the culture. And there's a big difference between doing something out of love for a culture and doing something. If I learned to cook, like let's say I absolutely loved Middle Eastern food. And so I spent a lot of time studying and learning the history and how it came about and what spices do what, and to the point where I'm able to invent a dish that is Middle Eastern. And then I make a show about Middle Eastern food. I'm not from the Middle East, but I appreciate and have spent a lot of time learning and understanding and appreciating their culture. I'm not identifying as a Middle Eastern person all of a sudden out of left field. No, I'm just a white guy who likes your food and I spend a lot of time. Am I not allowed to have a show about it? Like, that's absurd. How do you spread culture? How do you learn about each other if you can't appreciate each other? And so there's a line there. Atheist linguist for 10 said Tom Scott has opined that a censor bot that's neither too hard nor too easy to trigger would take such human-like sensitivity that the implications would be far greater than just effective filtering. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. I agree with that.
And you would need, it's almost like you actually have at that point created a sentient being to be able to determine these things, because we have the ability to do so. I don't think a computer does yet. Maybe they eventually become sentient at least to that degree, possibly. But they're nowhere near that yet whatsoever. Yeah. But going back to and thank you, English atheist linguist, for that. But going back to your thing, look, when Russians wear Levi's, are they culturally appropriating American culture? No, Levi's are comfortable. When I was over in Hong Kong, yeah. I love the Asian culture. I really do. I think it's an amazing culture. I love the food. And I had bought like a silk robe, really kind of it wasn't a kimono or anything, but it was like a silk thing. Comfortable as hell. I loved wearing that thing. lost it, and it would have been too small for me now. But I mean, was I culturally appropriate anything? No, I bought something that I like wearing because it was comfortable. And I like the the symbols on it and stuff like that. I like Asian symbols and stuff. So I just, again, I think it has to do a lot with intent, and I think people are just trying to find outrage with stuff.
I think people get confused between forcing your culture on somebody else and taking your culture to make it more like you, and appreciating and enjoying somebody else's culture. Though I think those are all different things. So if there's a difference between people saying that the Day of the Dead is just a Mexican Halloween. No, it's not.
No, it's the honor.
It's absolutely not at all.
Yeah.
That is problematic because it's misunderstanding and not having an appreciation for what the Day of the Dead actually is. And so that can be viewed as problematic or appropriation, because you're, instead of viewing their culture and learning about their culture and appreciating it for what it is, you're tacking a label that's just your label onto that thing to make it be something that it's not. That's a problem. But to be like, hey, listen, I want to have a Day of the Dead party at my house because I know a lot of people from Mexico who like to celebrate it, so I want to throw a party at my house, and you get the decorations and you do it as properly as you can. You're not appropriating their culture. You're appreciating it and expressing that appreciation for that culture by respecting it.
Mm-hmm. Do you think, though, do you think there's only so much racism to go around, and because the supply doesn't meet the demand of people wanting there to be? Because I do believe that some people do want racism only for the fact that it gives them a platform. And I hate to say that, but it is, they thrive on it. And they don't get it. They have to fabricate it. They have to find it anywhere there is. And I think that it harms the real cases of racism, because there's obviously a huge amount of racism in America. I don't think anybody's going to doubt that. But you don't have to go out of your way to look for it. There is enough supply, I think, to point out to people, hey, look, this is some racist BS, not to go around and try to put in anything you can find, like the poor girl that was wearing, the dress for her prom. There was absolutely nothing involved in that had anything, and nobody should have made us think about that.
I'm pretty sure she went out of her way. She was already studying the fashion and had already been studying the culture. And I'm not mistaken, she made the dress herself because she couldn't get it where she lived.
I mean, that's skill set, right? That's skill.
The fabric and made it to the specs of that culture. She didn't even change. It's not like she's like, oh, I'm gonna get a kimono and I'm gonna put cowboy tassels on it. Hold up, what are you doing? Now there is a line of like, oh, I'm being creative and I want to try something, but you're not saying, oh, a kimono is just the same thing as it's the same kind of dress as women would have worn when working at a saloon. No, that's not the same thing.
But even still, look, those were nice outfits. And again, I don't care what somebody wears. It's the intent behind something, right? If I'm not trying to mock anybody to make them feel less because of some intrinsic property about them, I don't have an issue. If somebody wants to wear jeans and muscle shirt and appropriate American type culture, go for it. I don't care.
What if being trans was sexual appropriation?
I don't even know what that would mean.
I could that is something so absurd that I could totally see somebody saying something nonsense like that on Twitter.
Cultural appropriation of the trans community. I don't know. Yeah.
No. If you're trans, you're sexually appropriating
the gender. Oh, you're sexually appropriating.
Yeah.
I get you.
Yeah. I mean.
All right.
No, it's not. Okay, I have one or two more things about this because they listed a couple, right? They listed something that they say called an Indian incident while opening an episode with Kenny Rogers. The Muppets dressed in Arab garb drilling for oil. The Muppets were dressed like that. The
Muppets had, I think, Arab.
I would have to see the episode, but like I said, wearing, I don't know if that was, it may be insensitive, I guess. I'd have to
Again,
see
I
the
don't.
episode at that
Like,
point.
look, if there are comedians out there, their entire routines are based upon cultural things, right? If you think it's
Sacha
funny,
Baron
listen to
Cohen
them.
is
If
a
you
good
don't,
example.
I mean, these people nowadays would have lost their minds listening to a Richard Pryor thing, 30 years
Oh yeah,
ago. I mean, his Raw was masterpiece, but it would nowadays he would have been condemned as a total racist piece of shit, even though it was funnier than hell. Richard Pryor, same thing. He was a master at this type of comedy, but
there's there. The comedy needs to be kept in comedy in the comedy sphere. It's its own sphere of influence. Sacha Baron Cohen and his Borat movie and his Bruno movies, and now is it Borat 2?
we're at two.
Yeah. Uh, those, if you think they're racist, if you think the character Borat is racist and therefore Sacha Baron Cohen is racist for making these films, you've missed the point.
Totally missed
the
the point
film.
of the thing. Yes, I agree with that.
You completely missed the point. Is what the character's saying racist? Yes. But it's a script, like it's calculated on purpose to expose people for being racist. That's the point. It's the same reason like a cop would pretend to be a 12-year-old girl to catch a pedophile. He's not encouraging the cop is not encouraging pedophilia.
Did I not say Eddie Murphy for Raw? Who'd I say? Yeah, I know it's Eddie Murphy. I mean, I remember the skits very well. Like, hey boy, you look mighty cute in them there jeans. Yeah, I mean, who did I say it was? Did I mess up?
No, I think you got it. I think it was just like blurbed out.
That was one of the freaking hilarious things I've ever heard. The Mr. T thing. Hey boy,
oh yeah,
you look mighty cute in them there jeans. Yeah, I grew up with that stuff. I loved it. I thought it was just, I couldn't stop laughing. It was so funny.
The one that bothers me on this list, it said something about one of them had a Confederate flag in the background. But there's one here that actually bothers me because this one I actually recognize and know, and it's Dumbo. Mm-hmm. The crows in Dumbo are not racist. They aren't. The reason they aren't racist is because they're actually played by the troupe, by the band of black people that wanted to do the role that they were doing the music for when they wouldn't have gotten paid or gotten the job in that time frame. Disney was the only one that were hiring these people to actually do the roles.
Yeah, so it wasn't really referring to like the actual minstrel. I mean, the minstrel shows. Like I said, I do believe that they were.
The minstrel shows were listed differently.
Yeah.
It listed the minstrel shows and then it listed Dumbo separately. Mm-hmm. The crows in Dumbo are not racist if you have any understanding whatsoever about the history of Disney, the history of that movie, who was acting in that movie, and why. The crows are not racist stereotypes. The crows were modeled after the people who played them, not after black people.
But you have to be able to differentiate that, and obviously they weren't able to do that for some reason.
You also have to understand that and actually pay attention to what the crows are saying. The crows are not sleazy. They're not stealing from anybody. They're not doing anything negative. They're giving Dumbo good advice and encouragement and helping him. They are not portrayed as bad or negative characters at all. At all. And like I said, they're modeled off of the band. They're not caricatures of, they're not racist caricatures of black people. They were based on people. The same way Ariel and her look and her attitude was based on the actress who played Ariel. They used her for reference. Yeah. It's the same thing with Wendy, same thing with Tinker. This is a thing that Disney did.
The only thing, like for example, the only time I think it even matters is when for something like an intrinsic property that really matters to the character itself. I mean, something that's like if I would have had like Black Lightning cast as a white actor, it would have made no sense, right? That's an inherent property to that character. Yeah. Black Panther, for example, like they have a Flash movie coming out now, and I don't know if you watch Supergirl with Benoit, but she's a white Supergirl. But they're casting a Latino one now. Perfectly fine with that. It's not intrinsic to the character. You know, I think it's great. No big deal. But people have to look at the type of character you're playing, right? I mean, there's certain times it makes sense to cast a certain role for a certain ethnicity. It just makes sense to do so. And so, when they were talking about the Ariel, it really wasn't intrinsic to the story. I mean, he did cast. I mean, one place where he wrote it, he did mention she was very fair skinned or something like that. But who cares? It's not. It had no relevancy to the story whatsoever.
Yeah, I think being upset over Ariel's skin color is absurd. I think being upset over Ariel's hair color has more credence.
Because she had red hair, right?
She has red hair, yeah. But that it's because it's representative of the way the character designs are and why they are like that. Each of the sisters are supposed to represent a different area. Mm-hmm. Ariel is the Red Sea. There's a reason why she has the number of sisters as she has and why they're named and designed to look the way they are. Disney was a little bit lazy in their design.
Which makes sense though, right? There's a purpose for that.
There's more than it's symbolic and it's part of this. It's visual storytelling. Yes. Mm-hmm. So when you start messing with visual storytelling for no reason, then I start being like, okay, now you're pandering, mm-hmm. and now it's condescending, and I don't think you should do that. But having her be black is not a problem. Having her be
relevant to the story,
not a problem. Having her be Middle Eastern, if she's a good actress, I have no problem.
It would probably make like less sense if you cast like Brave. Like I think Brave was an amazing movie. I'm not a huge Disney movie person, but there's certain times they come out with something that's just really good. Brave was really, really good, no matter what you like that genre or not. But if they were to cast her, in of a Gaelic Irish type of thing, it would have made no sense to the whole movie. So
there is something to be said when you're doing something that is a little bit more akin to that's geographically accurate for the time period you're trying to portray. So this starts getting into visual storytelling. When you see the character of Brave and when you see Merida, you hear her name, you see what she looks like, and then you hear her speak. Mm-hmm. It would be very jarring if she visually did not match the area and where she is from. Now, that doesn't mean you can't do that. It certainly doesn't mean you can't do that. It just means that you have to go about it in a functional manner. You have to go about it in a way that people are going to be able to understand what you're doing, and it just doesn't become cacophonous, mm-hmm. because you have that. So people tried to have this discussion when they were thinking about casting, or people were suggesting casting Idris Elba as the next James Bond.
He's a genius.
I think he would be an amazing next James Bond.
Yeah,
but if you were to take him and you were to put him in the 50s or earlier in England, he's not going to make a very good spy, because he's like in Ireland, he's going to be the only black guy. So like he wouldn't be able to be a spy or undercover at all. So, but that's not a problem if you put him in modern day. If he's a modern day James Bond, you're not inventing a plot hole into your story.
Did you watch Luther?
No.
Oh, it's highly recommend.
People Idris Elba played Heimdall, didn't he?
Heimdall in Thor. Yeah. Thor. Yeah, but he also he had an actual show. It was called Luther, and it was so good. Now, I'm not going to give any spoilers because somebody dies that I think kind of ruined the whole thing. But it was a brilliant, brilliant show. If you haven't seen Luther, go check it out. Especially if you like him as an actor, because man, that guy can act.
There's people were upset when he got cast as Heimdall, because people were saying, "Oh, you're just casting black actors for the Heimdall in the comic books is white." Blah 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 blah. He was an amazing Heimdall.
Oh, he made that character. He owned it.
His skin color was completely irrelevant in the comic books. His skin color did not matter at all in the comic books. You know what was problematic? Here's what's problematic. If you go and watch Avatar: The Last Airbender, the movie, which I don't recommend you actually go and watch.
I have not seen it for that very reason. And just
the show is amazing. 10 out of 10. Go watch Avatar: The Last Airbender, the show. The movie is trash, absolute garbage. One of the reasons it's garbage is because of the casting. Mm-hmm. Avatar, the show, is very, very rich in its cultures and which nation or kingdom represents kind of which culture, and they're visually drawn and inspired by different cultures. And when you take the Southern and Northern Water Tribe, who are clearly and very obviously based on Inuit culture, visually as well, and you make everybody else except the two main characters, then cast them using Inuit people, except the two characters that matter, who are white. Yeah. You fucked it up. You fucked it up. You fucked it up.
Well, I think they realized that after the fact.
There's a whole other thing where people got pissed because the Fire Nation was, for some reason in the movie, Middle Eastern people. And it was like, did you just make the Middle Eastern people the bad guys? Because they're not like that in the show. Yeah. In the show, they're very much far more Japanese based. And so why did you change that?
Well, I mean, those are the people that make these executive decisions, and these are the ones
now I think they're being racist in the other way.
Yeah, I mean, and that's possible to do, right? I mean, completely possible to say, hey, look, I'm trying to change this so I'm not being racist, and they end up being even more so sometimes. You know, the cure is worse than the disease. Let's see here. This kind of catching up on the.
Anyway, I think the people who think that the birds in Dumbo are racist don't know what they're talking about.
Yeah, and well, this is an example. It's like I said, the people. I mean, you read this and they may not know any of the backstory to that. They obviously don't add a lot of content to these types of stories, so you don't know the history.
Well, Mike gave me a little bit of pushback, and he said that the reason that it was based off of those people was because they would play up the stereotypes on stage. There's a difference between being on stage and performing, and you're in Disney's studio and they're talking to you and interviewing you to base these. Did you even see any of the background information about how they animated The Lion King or how they animated Tarzan? By bringing lions in and sketching them over and over and over again. When they did these things, they didn't have them, go up and perform for us. No, they were talking to them. They were interviewing them. They were interacting with them. They were paying them. They still had to operate within the confines of the world that they lived in at the end of the day. So they were still limited on what they were able to do. But this was not, the crows didn't have to be crows.
Yeah, but don't you think though? I mean, again, I'm not advocating for stereotyping people. Okay, so it's somebody you know is going to probably take this out of context, but whatever. It's our show. But look, like for example, like Karens, right? There's a stereotype there of certain, white class, middle class, white entitled women that people have loved for some reason to watch these videos with these Karens going off, and that has become a stereotype for that type of demographic. There's reasons for these things, right? I mean, I'm not saying that I'm not at all saying certain stereotypes are appropriate for in most of the cases, right? Absolutely not. But there are cultural things that differentiate between cultures. And that's one of them. Like the Karens I'm sorry, that's almost like a culture to them because they're so entitled, and we laugh at it. Now, 20 years from now, they may look back and go, that was really inappropriate and insensitive.
That was so mean.
And so mean to those white entitled, women that were yelling at people and for no apparent reason.
They might not even have that context either, right? Depending on how far in the future you go. So there is something to be said for stereotypes, like it or not, have a place in comedy. Period. End of sentence.
Yeah,
it doesn't matter.
If not, they wouldn't have it off the comedy that they have. I mean, that's
exactly. And what is acceptable and what isn't changes over time, and that's fine. And comedians need to take on that burden of, if you decide to be a comedian, to be able to try and ride that line. And it's not easy to do.
No.
However, there's a difference between everybody's laughing and having a good time about a stereotype about Karen, and it's a joke, versus people are going and accosting women who look like they think that they're Karens.
Yeah.
That's a problem. That's not okay. And you can use that comedy to expose that kind of behavior if it's happening. So it's not okay to be racist. Is it okay to make jokes about racism? Absolutely, it is, because it exposes racism.
Can you imagine, like, Carol O'Connor from All in the Family nowadays? I mean, he was one of the greatest people to expose racism all the time. And he hated that part because he was so anti-racist. But he realized that it did have a function. It showed people that actually believed things that he would say, people that existed, just like that character, Archie Bunker. But everybody who ever worked with him knows that he was absolutely mortified to do a lot of these skits. But nowadays, if we had something like that, people would be bitching at it and not appreciating the value that he gave because of his brilliant comedy to be able to portray these things so well.
The Boondocks. Have you seen the Boondocks?
Yeah, I have. I watched the Boondocks when it first came out, but even it did get a little bit even much for even me. I think it walked that line excessively.
It definitely crossed that line. It crossed that line on
a few
purpose.
times, I think.
The visual design of the character, all the way from the way they speak, who says what, the characters' names, the characterization of each of those characters serves a very, very particular purpose. A very, very particular purpose if you're paying close enough attention. Their neighbor's name is Tom, and he's married to a white lady.
No, I know there's symbolism about the whole thing, and it works for some people. I mean, again, I'm not ever going to say, hey, don't have something like the Boondocks. I just think it crossed the line a few times. But it's just not a show that I found of interest. It has some funny skits, don't get me wrong, occasionally, but it wasn't working for me. But I didn't boycott. I don't say don't watch it. It's just
no, and you didn't say it was racist because the show is not racist. The show is exploring people in this setting, dealing with these things, and sometimes it's in a comedic manner.
Yeah.
So you get this situation where, oh, well, that's super duper inappropriate. How dare you say this? But it's like, but we live there, and these are things that happen in those places that we live in. And by saying it's racist, you're denying our culture or the way we choose to live our lives or whatever struggles we're going through. One of the characters, Tom's daughter, struggles a lot, and she talks to the other two kids, Huey and Riley, about how she's of a mixed race and she gets bullied at school for it, and that's a whole episode, and that's important. And if you were to ignore and say that, oh, well, you can't talk about that and have these two other characters, and so therefore you can't have this character, why can't we explore these things? Inkboy for Two said, and what about a Black Queen of England?
I'm okay with that. Whatever. I'm not English, so they might get. I don't think they would care either. Inkboy, I don't know.
I think that if you're trying to do
historically accurate, you know what I mean?
Yeah, if you're trying to do a historical video or a historical movie, and you were to cast a Black woman in that part, Actually, I do have a question about casting, because people are saying that you should cast gay people.
I disagree with that. And I actually disagree with that.
Well, because I kind of want to take it a step.
You should be able to play any part.
Well, yeah, that's what I kind of want to take it a step further and say, okay, well, can Elliot Page play a woman?
Sure.
Can she only now, or can he only play men now?
Yeah, I don't. When it comes to acting, I think you can play any role
have an
you
answer
want.
to that.
Yeah, I don't get the whole thing. You have to cast a certain thing, because a straight person can play a gay character play a straight character. Look at Hugh Laurie. He played House. He's English. I didn't know the entire time House was on that he had an accent. Should we have cast an American person for that? No, he did a great job. I don't care. It makes no sense to me. You cast the best person that's going to do the best part for that part.
In some ways, there's a value, right? Depending on what kind of show or what kind of movie you're creating, there's a value to bring somebody from that culture, to bring authenticity to the role.
And that might be true. In most cases, it's probably the case, but you shouldn't.
But that's just being pragmatic.
Yeah, but you shouldn't say, hey, this person shouldn't get this part because they weren't gay, because now you're, being the one that's preventing them from taking a part that they probably could have excelled at. YouTube Server General makes a point, and I hardly agree. He says, joking about sensitive things often brings awareness and conversation to a subject, and people have a good laugh while knowing it's a joke. That's my whole thing on comedy. Yes, I believe we use comedy to help us cope. And the
cope and expose things in a way that isn't aggressive or going to necessarily cause people to go out and attack that person, because that can happen.
Godless Comer also says the British character Alf Garnett, who Archie Bunker was based upon, was played by a lifelong left-winger. The whole point of the character was exposed bigotry. Absolutely. And again, I don't think that they would have this type of shows nowadays because of the need to try to find something wrong in everything. They go out of their way to try to find something wrong in the most innocuous things. By the way, look who showed up in the live chat there. We have a wild egghead that showed up.
Eggy!
Eggy!
I love Egghead. Hi, Egghead.
Hi, Egghead.
I think there's so much that you could talk about with this. Like, so you could go on forever because there's so many examples and different things you can talk about. So you could say, if you can't sing, can you play a Disney princess? Is dubbing okay?
Yeah, I mean,
of course it is.
It is. I mean, it is. But why would you want to? You could probably find somebody who actually can do the part and do a better job.
Well, yeah, it's a matter of the thing is like the people who kind of say things like this seem to me to be trying to say that, oh, well, studios just pick a person.
No, they go that's a lot of thought. They have put a lot of thought into who they pick most of the time.
Marketing does go into it, and whether or not that actor is going to bring numbers in is something that goes into consideration. But who was Tom Holland before he was Spider-Man?
Yeah, and he was, but he did a good job on it, right? I mean, he made that part come alive.
He wasn't absolutely nobody, but like
he owned it.
People were upset about the woman Zenyatta, is that her name? That plays MJ in the new Spider-Man series, in Tom Holland's Spider-Man, because they were like, she can't be MJ. She doesn't have red hair. People were saying like, oh, well, she's not white. And it's like the number of people who were upset about her being of color
that's right.
So it was much less than the number of people who were pissed that her hair wasn't red, because MJ's hair is like such a strong part of her character design. It's like, here, listen, this is Sonic the Hedgehog. He's not blue and doesn't run fast. Who
played the part? Was it starts with a Z from Disney?
Yeah, Zenyatta, I think is her.
She's very talented, obviously, and absolutely stunning.
Oh, she's fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, so I wouldn't give a shit that she got the part over somebody else because she's got the talent to pull it off.
Well, the thing is people were complaining about her hair color more than they were complaining about her race.
Weird.
Because, well, it's like I said, it's because the red hair is such a strong. Oh, Zenyatta is an Overwatch character.
Oh, okay. Yeah, Zendaya. Yeah, how do you pronounce her name? Yes, I know she is from Disney.
I suck. The red hair of MJ is iconic. That's why people were upset about it. There were some people that were upset about her race, but that's absurd.
Yeah,
but the red hair is something that's iconic. But I have not the complaints about that. Shut the fuck up as soon as the movie came out and they actually saw her perform.
It was good. I liked his. I liked his version of it. I liked it better than what's his name? Tobey Maguire. Was it Tobey Maguire? Yeah, I wasn't a big fan.
I feel a little bit bad for Tobey Maguire because
did he ask for too much money and they just replaced him basically? Is what I think I heard.
No. The series basically ended. Oh. They did 3. The third movie had some problems. I was really upset about Venom, so that kind of ruined the movie for me. But the first 2, Doc Ock was amazing. Green Goblin, amazing. Tobey Maguire the only thing that his Spider-Man was lacking, because those movies were very comic book styles. It had the cover, it had the goofy, campy nonsense. It was great. The problem is they didn't have Spider-Man's inner monologue. It was missing his sass. That Spider-Man is sassy. Mm-hmm. Spider-Man is funny.
What did Tom Holland bring to the table? He had it all. He had that sass.
Andrew Garfield brought some of that to the table. The problem with Andrew Garfield's films was that they were convoluted as hell because they were trying to squish too much. They were trying to squish too much crap into it, and it's like, we don't need a Stop giving us Spider-Man origin stories. We all know who Spider-Man is. Stop giving us Batman origin stories. We don't know who Batman is. Stop giving.
Yes, I agree. Those are played out. Done.
Telling of how Superman came from Krypton. We all know who Superman is.
What do you? Real quick, guys. By the way, Ash Scott. I'm not even going to start me on Doctor Who. We have to do a whole episode on that one of these days. Don't even start me on the shitty writing that has been on Doctor Who, the point of who the hell even watch it any longer, because She could have done an amazing job. She's a great actress, and I don't fault her for anything that she has done in the show. But the writing, Chernobyl's direction, the revamping of the entire thing, that she's not even a Time Lord any longer. Yeah, that's going to be another episode. Okay, that's going to be a whole different episode because I'm just so over it.
Smitty said that the Green Goblin was played well, but the suit looked like a Power Rangers villain. That was on purpose. And Tobey Maguire was weak on sarcasm. Yes!
Yeah,
but that's not his fault. That's the writing.
The Avengers. I mean, but Tom Holland, when he's in his character, when he's like in the Avengers, is just perfect. Do you watch The Boys?
Some of it. I haven't.
I think that's a brilliant series too. But anyways, we're gonna move on to the next story here. Oh my gosh, my voice is starting. Okay, so this one's a little bit more. Do we
want to move on to another one because we're 66 minutes in?
Yeah, let me move on to one more, and then whatever you want to pick. This one I think is important. Okay. This one is a little more serious because this one is that one that you had brought to my attention. The Iran cleric.
Gear shift.
Yeah. So trigger warning in the appropriate way. I actually had somebody come down on me because I said the word trigger in my blog, and they're like, "You're not using it in the medical sense." I'm like, "Yeah, I'm not." So what's your point? And they're like, well, you should only use it in the medical sense because people actually have PTSD. And I'm like, no, but
sounds
no.
Awful.
I'm like, no, and don't get triggered on me. When we have an episode that deals with something along the lines that it could trigger actually somebody with PTSD or anything like that, we understand that we will use it that way. But don't tell me how to write my blog when I'm not. My whole point of the blog was, I'm not people getting upset for no reason. That's what the common thing for trigger is, like, what the hell happened? You just kind of like got triggered for no reason. Or just something in your mind kind of shit.
You're the one telling people that only they can use certain definitions.
So prescriptive in their usages, right? But anyways, the people who are vaccinated for Covfefe have, quote, become homosexuals. Yes. So apparently these clerics are now going around telling people that if you take the vaccine, you'll become gay, or you could become gay. And in that regime, they will execute you for that type of lifestyle. It is one of the most barbaric cultures in the entire world.
When we had Dr. Randall on last week, this is the thing we were trying to talk about differentiating. There's a difference between whether or not your religion is true and whether or not your God is real, and what your religion decides to collectively do as a group. These are two different conversations.
Absolutely.
Whether or not the people in Iran are correct about their religion or about whether or not their God is real and whatever stories about that God are true is completely separate from causing medical crises and murdering people based on that thing. Now it's an issue of ethics and an issue of religious fundamentalism, not the question of whether or not what they believe is true.
Correct. And that's why,
if you think it's that being gay or whatever is the devil and people should be killed for it, that doesn't mean you get to go out and kill people for it.
Yeah, and you don't, whatever your stance is on the existence of a deity or not, everybody should announce stuff like this. Everybody. It's just, this is what I'm saying. When people don't understand the difference between a person's religious beliefs and their incorporation of their religious beliefs to do something that I find to be morally egregious. This is an ethical consideration, right? This is something they do that I find to be morally egregious. And then people start talking about, well, what do you ground your morals in? How do you say if you don't have a God? And that's a whole different discussion. I think most of it is ludicrous because they're just throwing it out there that somehow you need a God to have morals, which is bullshit. But that's what some of them believe. Or they say that God has to exist to have morals, but you don't have to acknowledge that deity exists. You're just borrowing from their worldview kind of thing, right? No, but whatever. But this is the kind of stuff that everybody should be denouncing. And I know there are organizations out there that do it. I'm not a fan of certain things that the atheist communities have done, but groups like the Atheist International Alliance have fought against this kind of stuff. And they get shit on all the time because they use a certain word, like the R word, and they get shit on for that rather than, hey, we're trying to actually save people's lives here and recognizing that this type of belief is harmful. And I do stand behind that. It is no longer just having a religious belief. If you want to believe that, your deity or whatever does this and this and whatever, I don't care. But this type of belief is to me morally forbidden as far as ethical considerations, and clearly detrimental to a culture or into the world in general. So,
do you remember back in the day when the atheist goal, like the kind of the collective goal of the atheist push at the time, was being able and allowed to create secular ways of helping people? You remember when that was
back
kind
in the
of
day
goal,
when it actually had a valid
and
point
preventing
to kind of make?
preventing the harm like this that a religion can do if it's dogmatism and pushing something based only on those reasons?
I do, but that has now changed to
instead of oh, look out, you said a word.
Well, it's worse than that. It's like, and I know I'm gonna get pushback on it from the host. I'm not gonna mention their names, but that's okay. But it's more now it's turned into, oh, well, please don't comment on the looks of the host, kind of thing. It's all about the fifis and shit like that, and it's just like, no, I'm sorry, I just don't watch things like that any longer.
How secure do you need to be? Why do you even have a camera? Why are you using a camera?
I couldn't give a shit when people comment on my looks. I don't give a shit. I'm going bald. I recognize this. I understand. I don't care. I've never been insecure about my looks. I've been insecure about other things, but my looks, I don't give a shit. It's not a factor to me. Comment at will. You're not going to get blocked. I don't care.
No, I just don't understand. If you're going to go out of your way to post in your chat, don't talk about the way I look. Why do you have a camera?
Well, I don't know, but that's what the communities are all about now. It's all about the fifis of somebody. It's no longer about the facts. It's not about the topics. It seems to be a lot more emotionally driven.
Well, it already wasn't, because the thing is that you would. So there's a reason why you would allow that kind of commentary, because then you just fire back with, so you can't address my argument.
Yeah. George, you're blocked. Yeah. No, and that's what it is. They can't address the arguments, and so they do shut down a lot of conversations.
Have you been in a debate ever before, though?
have you? Hey, Chess, you ever been in a debate? Yeah.
You ever been in a debate?
You ever have a talk with a theist, Josh?
Have I ever spoken to a theist ever? No, never happened. I live under a rock.
Have you ever watched a debate, man? But again, I think you're absolutely right. I mean, the days back when I used to watch some of the atheist stuff, we both agree that Tracy Harris did a really good job on the atheist experience.
Oh yeah, she was
absolutely amazing. But because of all the schisms that they've had and the kerfuffles, it's no longer anything that it was. It is so emotionally led and so emotionally driven, and every host they have on there nowadays is in that touchy-feely type of thing, and that's not the style that I have ever done. That's not what I enjoy watching. I'm not saying that they shouldn't be. I mean, watch what you want to watch. That's not the point. But it isn't what it used to be.
Yeah, and I think we've addressed that enough, to be honest. Like, I think everybody kind of knows our stance on this nonsense,
I would hope
and
so.
It's like,
I would hope so.
I don't. Fucking whatever, man.
But that's why it's important for stuff like this. It's like, look, we can have a different approach, but we've been shunned by the atheist community, even though we probably agree on 95% of the stuff like this should be condemned. This has nothing to do with touchy-feely stuff. This has to do with people dying because of an archaic bullshit belief system.
And because that they're also ignoring science, which is another problem.
Absolutely.
This is a problem that the Catholic Church has faced for years, when they're saying, oh no, don't use condoms, or oh no, don't get vaccinated because the Americans are trying to trick you, blah 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 blah. That's some bullshit.
And look what happened when I condemned the Catholic Church in a tweet that had probably, I think, 500 likes, give or take, pushing 500 likes. I could, outright speak out against it, and then I have a Catholic woman who tries to make a video trying to make me a rape apologist.
Well, listen. You just really need to explain the acts that somebody else has to grind against somebody else, and she doesn't need to explain hers. Philosopher 10 said, I just feel sorry for the Iranian government. The way their system is set up there, that they can't ignore the clergy no matter how stupid things they say. Islamic Republic and all. Well, when you have a religious state, I actually recommend that. I think a lot of American people should probably look into what happened back in the 60s and the 70s in Iran and in these areas to see how they became a religious state. Like, how did you get from point A to point B, and start maybe being concerned about some of your party's behavior.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Because we don't want that. And it's funny, if you look at the old pictures for Iran and Afghanistan and all these things, they were pretty cultured. Women were looked like.
Well, I mean, they're still cultured. It's just a far different kind of culture.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't to the extreme that it is now. And I do believe the rights of countries should be kind of sovereign and independent. I get that, but I also believe in human rights, and I think that the countries that do violate human rights, there needs to be accountability. It is one world, and I've had pushback on that before, because people are like, well, what happens if they're not the correct belief system or ethics or something like that? It's like, look, there's certain things that I think are ubiquitous in the world, and when it comes to human having human rights, and if there are countries out there that don't follow that, there should be sanctions against them. Like, we've isolated North Korea, absolutely isolated them, right? They could have been a very flourishing country. South Korea.
Well, they also isolated themselves.
Well, it's both, though, right? I mean, because we have condemned the crap out of them, right? Do I think we should go in and attack them? No, they're a sovereign nation, but that doesn't mean that they shouldn't have pushback from the rest of the world that condemns these types of countries.
So there's well, that's where you get into like political sanctions about, hey, you bombed or gassed your people, nobody's going to trade with you. Mm-hmm. But that doesn't work if we don't work together, and we're not working together, so it's not very effective.
We had Trump.
One of the things that Canada was doing that Trudeau got a lot of flack for a couple of years ago was that he was looking to try to open more trade with China. And people were like, how could you do that, you monster? China treats their people awfully. However, it's not up to us to dictate how the Chinese people choose to live. Now, to a degree, they don't choose to live this way. They're born into it, and a lot of them don't like it, which is why you're seeing a lot of the riots and the protesting and what's been going on there. But the thing is, by trading with them, and helping their market by picking and choosing ethical sources from those markets and exposing us to what's going on to them, so we can do social media nonsense and be like, well, that company, they do this, and that. Or, hey, Apple is taking advantage of this, and we wouldn't know if we didn't trade with them. Well, or passing of information, and they also might not know that there are other ways to go about things, and it's easier to repress somebody the less information they have. So the more you interact and open up to a country, the more their people learn, and the more information that they have, making them better to giving them more and stronger opportunities to defend themselves and fight for themselves and their own rights.
Yeah, you can definitely make that argument.
Freedom on people.
Yeah, but you definitely can make that argument. You can make the argument that, look, the more we trade with China, the more we interact with them, the more the people get informed, maybe there's more likely change to be brought about.
Now, we can help them in that change when they decide to change it, but we can't just go and this is how you get things like 9/11. We're going to go in there and do what we're going to be America, and we're going to be like, no, we're helping you. And it's like, we didn't want your help. Yeah. Stop. Yeah. Well, and please, I do you're think hurting Trump, us and our people.
Clearly, Trump was not advantageous to have these type of world changes. Let's be realistic here.
Oh, obviously not. No.
We'll see what happens under the next
things
regime,
like the Paris Accord are such
Biden
a move
regime
in the right direction.
Yeah. All right. So what do you got for us? What do you want to talk about in the news? I don't have anything pulled
up. For anybody who doesn't know, Facebook basically blacked out news in Australia. And the reason Facebook blacked out news in Australia is because Australia passed legislation that would mean that anytime a link to news, any kind of news article is shared on Facebook, Facebook would have to pay for it. Which is absurd.
Yeah.
So the response from them is, okay, well, we won't have it then.
Yeah.
And so the people were upset at Facebook, and the government's like, well, you can't do that. And Facebook's like, what,
really?
You mean you don't want us to follow your legislation and not just write you a blank check? Mm-hmm. Of course we're not going to do that.
Yeah.
But there's a more interesting conversation kind of buried in here, because I don't really want to talk about the details of the legislation. What I'm interested in is that Do you think removing news from Facebook entirely is actually a good idea? That might be beneficial. And just be like, listen, this is social media for people to talk to each other.
Well,
Go get your news somewhere else.
Yes and no. I mean, obviously there's financial considerations because some of the stuff obviously they make money off of, right?
I'm ignoring
Facebook
the
has to make
financial.
money.
Yeah, I'm ignoring the financial part because they can make money other ways.
Yeah, I mean, but you can't just stem the tide of links to things. I mean, people put links all the time, and some of it will be accurate and some of it's not. And I don't know how easy it is for an entire thing like Facebook to police these types of things.
Well, that's what they did. They blocked.
No, I know, and that's what they did. They said, "Okay, fine. We're just not going to have the ability to do so." I get it. And by the way, I don't think that was a bad decision to make based upon all things considered.
It's a good financial decision.
Yeah. So, but it sucks for the Australians, right? But hey, they're the ones that were saying that, they're the ones that put things in motion. But how do you go about determining what is fake news and what is not? I mean, that is a very difficult thing to do. But I think that if you want to get away from that, then you're right. Facebook probably shouldn't be the place to go get your news. However, where do people in the underground want to get their news? They don't want to get it from the mainstream sources, right? They want to find it on Reddits. They want to find it in the deep web, dark web, whatever. They want to find it in Facebook.
The difference, Facebook is in a far different position than something like Reddit. Reddit, you do have things like are conservative, but you also have the way Reddit interacts is far less conducive to an echo chamber. It's far less clicky than Facebook is. Facebook, you run into this problem of vanilla internet. People who are using Reddit, although it is starting to happen more, are people who are more familiar with forums and people who are more familiar with how and sort of the internet works a little bit more than people who use Facebook. Facebook is like the lightest tier of you're barely even touching what the internet is capable of. And so a lot of people who are on there don't actually understand what the internet is capable of. So I think that I don't think it's necessarily, ignoring the financial bit, I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing to just be like, listen, if Facebook decided to do this, I'm not saying it should be forced on them. I don't think that would be a good thing at all. But if Facebook decided that, you know what, fuck it, we don't do news anymore. Any links to anything that is considered news, blocked. Any tabloid, any of that, blocked. Nada, nothing. This is for you to interact with yourself and others. But then what you would do is you would just have people copy and pasting articles.
Well, yeah, and also, but it would ruin tracking things. Like if you notice when you click on a link for Facebook, it'll have something like I think it says like FBI.
Well, you wouldn't even have a link from Facebook anymore.
But it'll have like the link, and then it'll have a tracking thing like FBI ID, so Facebook ID or whatever it stands for. It'll have some link, question mark, and then this tracking code. Those things tell where a referral came from, which is very handy for tracking. Where is this traffic coming from?
Yeah, for analytics.
For analytics, absolutely. Yeah.
But the thing is, what we're talking about is news specifically. Yeah. It doesn't mean you wouldn't be able to share a cooking recipe. It just means that you're not sharing.
I couldn't share Fox News if I wanted to, even if the article was actually correct for a change.
So that actually comes to what my solution would actually be. What I would say if I were to make a suggestion, now you would have to, again, it would have to be finagled by people actually at Facebook who have a better understanding of how their platform functions from a logistical level. But same thing that, like I was saying about YouTube, is Facebook ought to just have approved and not approved. Remove commentary, remove obvious fake news, and places that regularly put out fake news and leave things that they've actually investigated, right? So if you're like, okay, listen, CNN we've investigated, MSNBC, they're pretty good. Yeah, do they have a slant? Sure, but having a slant is not. But
InfoWars, no.
Infowars, no, absolutely not. And if because they already do this, they just don't invest enough time and energy into it. So what I would suggest is come up with a standard, come up with like kind of like a table of contents of how you would do this, and then implement that with a little bit more.
Well, they have that. You've seen the thing that's out there. It shows the news organizations and the reliability and stuff like that in their slants.
Well, yeah, exactly. Yeah. So that information already exists. So if Facebook just implements that into what they filter out, and then they just say they would take InfoWars, and anything from InfoWars would just be nuked. This is just not allowed on the site. And so you could do it's a happy marriage of the two, because it's better for Facebook, it's more healthy for them, and it's better for people. And yes, Fox News would absolutely be blocked. And the reason Fox News would be blocked is because they're a commentary show. They're entertainment. They are not a news channel.
They've definitely moved in that market. Yeah, absolutely.
They started in that market. They've always been.
I watched Fox News in the beginning, and they were a little bit more. Things change over time a lot.
I agree that they've changed, but they were always entertainment. They've always been.
To some degree, yeah. Hannity and Combs. I was entertained by Hannity and Combs. I thought that was actually a decent show back when Hannity wasn't a complete shitbag. But now he's a complete. He and Rush Limbaugh both went full shitbags.
They started over here and then just drifted more and more. They were never news.
No. I agree with that. They're commentary.
Just got worse and then tried to disguise themselves more as news.
But I mean, I think your suggestion's fine. The only thing that pushback wise would be, of course, they would come out and say, "Hey, look, they don't want you to know the truth," and just lead to more conspiratorial stuff. But I would say, "Fuck it, I don't care."
Oh yeah, but they're not going to be able to
right. Suck it up, whatever.
People are going to do that anyway. Yeah. There's no stopping that. Look at what happens to us. We put everything on the table, and there's still conspiracies. Like, it's gonna happen no matter what.
That's actually the funniest part. We are the most honest, open people out there, kind of thing. And everything we've said come to fruition. And yet there are so many conspiratorial theories out there still. Reds deals with it all the time too.
It's almost like the more honest you are about a situation, the more conspiracies start.
Yeah, exactly.
If I just lied about shit more often, I think people would be more likely to believe me because I'm lying.
I'm telling you, I'm convinced of that. Oh, I'm absolutely freaking convinced of that. If I was better at bullshitting, people would be like, "Oh yeah, this is definitely the case."
The thing is like sometimes reality just isn't as entertaining, and also sometimes reality is just more absurd. And so, like, how absurd is it that Kyle's going to go to jail over a YouTube channel? That's absurd. There's got to be more to it, guys. There's got to be more to it. It can't just be that Kyle's a moron.
I originally I was like, yeah, I don't think he was going to go to jail, and I said that only because, again, the chances were highly unlikely. He wasn't doing the fuckery that he was doing, but once he started doing the fuckery that he was doing, all things changed. I don't know if you can see it, but I'm showing on the outside the media bias chart from January 2021, and I love this chart, by the way. I really like this chart. I do listen. I mean, I do value AP and routers, and this. I think they did a pretty good job on here on the lean and the quality. You get down here and you get like the Inquirer, World Truth, Infowars, and even a little bit higher, you get PragerU and Fox News and Newsmax, and so I mean, I think they did the daily costs.
PragerU is not news.
Yeah, no, I know. And then right here, like the Daily Mail. I go to Daily Mail for a lot of things, but it's not as highly accurate as many of the others by any stretch of the imagination. But as you start moving up, you do get a little bit more accurate, a little bit more really mixed analysis and on point. And then you just have like more fact-based reporting. But it's so funny that you get Fox News way the frick down there.
You could legitimately just have Facebook implement this as like, listen, if you're below this yellow line.
Yeah, that's what this green line's for. That's what I think.
What your bias one way or the other way is. What we care is the quality. If your quality is below this amount.
Yeah, I mean, this green line's fine. The yellow line's where the cutoff would really kind of be for most people, and that would unfortunately include Fox News would be above that. But it's somewhere. This is the gray area, of how far leaning left or right that they are.
Yeah, you would just. Yeah, the thing is that you wouldn't want to base your scale. If I was Facebook, speaking for Facebook, for my opinion, you wouldn't want to base your scale off of leaning left or right. what you would want to base your scale off is the quality.
The fact
So
reporting, right?
even if they're far right leaning, that doesn't mean that they're 100% that they're guaranteed to bullshit. They could still talk about from that angle whatever facts, as long as the fact is still the fact. If they're changing numbers
Yes.
to try and push a narrative
Like Ted
because
Cruz.
of their bias, now that your quality goes down and you get the fuck out.
Ted Cruz and the nursing homes that were 50% underreported. But yeah, but isn't it kind of odd that you have like Al Jazeera like way up here in Fox?
I'm waiting. I'm still holding out for Kyle to go the same way as Ted Cruz. I gotta go to Cancun, guys.
Hey, flying to Mexico. It's nice down there. Yes. So, but unfortunately, we do not have any non sequitur show news. I wanted, of course, I realized people were going to see the title and think that, but I wanted to see if people would actually go, oh, well, it doesn't say non sequitur, therefore, who knows? They didn't do that. So.
Well, I don't know. That's not entirely the first tweet that I saw in response to the tweet that went out today for today's show was somebody saying, "Well, there's nothing new on the docket." So
that's true. No, that is true. I saw that tweet. Very good on that.
That was RNGD Gaming.
Yes. Well,
and I was just like,
he's pretty smart.
Not
saying that people weren't, but it's just like, I like to see how people think.
I don't think we've ever done a show about non sequitur without saying non sequitur in the title.
Not once. Nope, this was about just new stuff because we just.
It's funny when you notice like what your expectations are based on certain things. I think it's funny sometimes when somebody does, like, I get caught in things sometimes. I'll see a title and I'm like, and then I read it and I'm like, oh, okay, that's my bias, I guess.
Anomalous insect asks, what's the timer up to? The timer is up to.
Oh God.
I'll tell you in a second here. Okay, why is it not good? There you go. It is up to 621 days, 18 hours, 32 minutes, 38 seconds.
Yeah.
621 days. That's a long mofo time. That's 2 years of.
I'm gonna have to make it like a scroll of names or something.
Steve will get paid. Steve, you'll get paid. Yeah. 2 years later. And by the way, it was never supposed to have been 2 years. I mean, people were saying it would probably take 2 years, but that's only because of the things going on in the world. It should have been over a year ago, but whatever. It ended up being better that it was 2 years because we now have so much more evidence of his.
It's just gotten so much worse. If this
had
just been dealt with quickly, Kyle would be happily on his way doing his Tastecraft show. But for some reason, even though that has nothing to do with non sequitur, for some reason, him and Caitlin Chloe decided not to do it.
Shocker.
I wonder why.
Can you imagine if he tried nowadays, especially with him?
Do it.
He is going probably to jail for at least 30 days. I think that's kind of a no-brainer. I mean, he will if he found criminally for criminal contempt.
What do you mean? He deleted that channel because he was so worried I was going to read the comments off of it.
Clearly, that was the reason.
Shame I got the comments anyway. Shit doesn't work. It's got to suck getting outsmarted by somebody on the regular with a 62 IQ.
I know. I mean, you got such a low IQ, and yet you seem to outsmart some people. I mean, that doesn't bode well for them.
So no.
But hey, Kyle thinks he had better hair than you, so whatever.
He does?
Not according to him. I know. Have you seen him lately?
Oh.
I don't know.
I have no idea. I didn't know he ever talked about
2 years has not been kind
to
him. Okay, 2 years.
I guess I should be honored that he was even willing to compare my hair to his.
So,
I'm sorry.
I mean, what do you guys got for us? I want to wrap it up a little bit.
Yeah.
My voice is kind of getting shot a little bit. You got anything coming up on your channel?
Yeah. Okay. So I've got. I do want to talk a bit more about a handful of things over on that time of the month, and I am open and looking for guests and people who are interested in coming on. So if you're a woman, hit me up. Let me know, because that's the angle that I'm taking with the show. I think there's plenty of other spaces, and I want to kind of create a little.
I don't have an issue.
No, it's not a safe space, but I want.
You're allowed to have a specific demographic for certain reasons.
Yeah, that's what it is. But it's not a demographic for who can look. It's just a demographic for who I want to come on. The perspective, that the angle that I'm looking for to bring to the table. So it doesn't mean that we're never going to have men on. It just means that it's going to be few and far between. So if you are a woman and you're interested in either coming on and you have your own topic that you want to talk about, please feel free to contact me and we'll get you on. You don't need to have a camera. You don't have to be on camera if you do not want to. If you have a camera and still don't want to, also fine. I'm right now, the topics that I've got kind of on deck are, actually, let me pull it up just because I want to make sure I get it right. Wanted to talk about the Wall Street bets. And so if you're interested in stocks or have a history in stocks or have been following that, that's one. I want to talk about veganism and lifestyle choices. So if you work with animals or if you have like sort of a particular way that you like to sort of live your life that's kind of a little bit more unique to what would be considered average, then hit me up. I would love to know. And conservation. If you do anything with like either in politics and policy, or if you deal with conservation in a more direct manner, like you've studied agriculture or anything about like, a bird sanctuary, things like that. I also want to talk about a little bit of Disney, particularly not just Disney, but Disney in particular gets a lot of flack for being, the old school Disney princesses are really bad role models for women, or for young girls. So I do want to have some people come on and talk about movies that they think have been very good role models and see some of the angles and ideas, because I think there's a couple that might surprise people that at least I have in my back pocket. So if you're interested in any of those things, please feel free to reach out to me. That would be fantastic. And I'm also talking about some D&D nonsense tomorrow that somebody said that women are too stupid to play D&D. So I'm going to be going over that.
Because I would assume it's because numbers are hard.
It's because the lore is too dense and the rules are too complicated.
What is it? Rules 5th edition. Yeah. Go back to basic. Go back to the 3.5.
3.5 is way more complicated than 5th edition.
Yeah, but I don't know. I do miss.
There are people that complain the hell out of. There's two things.
3.5 overcomplicated things, but it was a lot of rules.
People do one of two things. Either they say 5th edition has dumbed down too much, but they also complain that 3.5 was a shit show because it had too much going on. Mm-hmm. I like 5th edition because I find it's a nice in-between. It's not as simplified as 4th edition, which kind of felt more like a card game to me. Mm-hmm. And it's not as crazy complicated and broken as by the end of 3.5. By the end of 3.5, you're like, I'm a god by level 3. Leave me alone.
I'm a level 10 with a +5 Vorpal sword. Let me take off your head. Yeah. No, I mean, I if I ever played again, it would be with the fifth rules. But I mean, I found D&D be great because it's one of those games that you really enjoy the imagination involved with it, and it's just D&D. Great. It was very relaxing back in my youth playing D&D with friends.
I'll talk about D&D forever if you let me.
Well, we have to have a game. I mean, again, I haven't played since I was a kid. I mean, so I would suck at it. But I would try. I would get into it. We never really did the full character.
I'm gonna fly down to I'm gonna fly down to Cali. I'm gonna run a game for you guys, and then that'll be our session 0. And if we want to keep playing, we can do it online. I will only
play some kind of magic user, though. Clearly, that has to be the case. I don't even mind if they had some healing ability, but magic user, Yeah, but I like the fact that you're bringing up some people. Obviously, I adore the people that you do that show with Manya and Heather and. Just you accumulated a great group of people for that. Show.
I would love to expand that group of people who can come on and want and are interested. Because I don't want to be tied down to just having like 2 or 3 people. I want to get as many different perspectives on. So if you're on or you're not on that day, it's definitely not about, well, I didn't care what you had to say. It's because I want to get as many of there's so many channels and they're all men all the time. And I'm like, you know what? I appreciate your guys' opinion and I like what you have to say, but that I kind of want a place for the women personally, to have man.
Hey, look, hey, okay, I'm gonna be straight with you here. Okay, straight with you. Mm-hmm. Let me, and I know you know this, so I'm not telling you anything you're not aware of. But sometimes Men just want their man cave to hang out with men.
Yes.
If that's the case, and I completely understand, women just want their women cave to hang out with women. I get this. What is that problem with that? There isn't any rational human being.
The idea that the atmosphere that I want the show to have is we're having a wine and cheese day, and we're coming to just hang out and talk about topics that we're interested in. It is not an educational show. It is not a show that's going to teach you anything. It's not like directly, it's not a show to get news or facts from. We're going to get facts wrong. We're going to get information incorrect because we're basing it off of, I'm not showing you the article and being like, this is the situation and I'm explaining it. No. We're talking about we're talking about this particular thing, and we're all just bringing our own perspective, and we might not even be that well versed in the thing. The point is like, this is what we think about it, and here's why and how we feel about the thing. So come and join me. Message me on Twitter. Probably is the best place to get a hold of me. I should probably put my Twitter in there. Twitter or Discord are the two best places to get a hold of me. So I'll put those
Twitter
in.
Twitter's the best for me. Discord is one of the worst, but I do check it every so often. But Casey Chris says Steve should play an agnostic cleric. I may or may not cast Fireball.
I don't think you can play an agnostic.
Yeah, I think
cleric.
you have to have a deity. That's where you get your power from for a cleric, right? So I mean, it's kind of difficult to have a cleric that's agnostic that doesn't have a deity, because where would they get their power from?
I did have a cult that I was working on in D&D, and it was a cult of atheists. Because in the D&D world,
you couldn't have a cleric in an atheist group, though. How do you have a healer?
No, you wouldn't. But they can be paladins.
The paladin has lay on hands.
So,
where would the lay on hands power come from?
So that's the funny thing about one, D&D gods and the way that they're formed, and two, the way paladins work. Paladins work because they believe hard enough, not because it's real or true.
Okay, I could get behind that. Yeah,
but that's not the way. So you could be an agnostic paladin, but not an agnostic cleric.
No,
a cleric needs a deity.
And that's why I do like games like D&D. They do make you think, and it is like, okay, does this make sense? Could we make this work? Can we incorporate this in the storyline? Does this action make sense? I love that kind of shit, man. That is what thinking is.
Making a cult that's out to that just straight up claims that the gods don't exist. But of course, in the D&D world, the gods exist. They interact with you. They do things.
Hey, Dapper,
you can kill them.
Hey, Dapper, I had a cleric mage. Fuck off.
Fireball. A cleric wizard.
I could fry you and heal you at the same time. It had no effect. They cancel each other out.
To be fair, Fireball is only a 3rd level wizard spell. So you wouldn't need to be that. You wouldn't need to. You could multi-class, and you wouldn't need to dip that far into.
Well, I mean, because you generally when I do a split character, you have your primary because that's where you want most of your experience points. Because if you try to do both, it's not. You end up being a weak character, So you end up wanting to have.
It depends on what you want to do.
Yeah.
I have a character that I made that I wanted to be the best detective ever, and so this character dipped into like 3 different classes. Because the goal wasn't the character was not meant to be good at fighting at all.
What do you have? A fire mage, barbarian, or something? Fire mage, cleric?
No, they didn't know. Bard, knowledge cleric, rogue.
Rogue. Rogues can be pretty badass. So.
Well, the reason it was for 1, jack of all trades, 2 for expertise, and 3 for languages and skill sets that you get as a knowledge cleric at level 2. So essentially, this character was very, very good at speaking any language, being able to decipher anything, and having very, very good skill checks. But in combat, worthless. Completely worthless.
Because again, D&D can get very, very, very incredibly nuanced. 2 things that really made some nuance to it, and DMs generally don't use them, but 1, spell components, and 2, cantrips. I thought cantrips were really a pretty good addition because you don't have to cast a full spell. You just go, sneeze kind of thing. I think those are a great addition. But I think the spell components really added too much complexity to the game and was not really.
So
unless you want to have an herbalist, alchemist kind of character that's really dependent upon that.
Yeah.
But
There's only one class that actually has to worry about spell components very much, and that's wizards specifically. A lot of DMs will just waive, except for spells that consume.
Like you need a diamond or something for it.
Yeah, so the ones
diamond.
that like a resurrection spell requires a diamond worth X amount of gold that the spell consumes. So most DMs will say that your components don't get consumed. So you don't. So if you're like, oh, I'm going to cast Featherfall and I need a pinch of sand and some dust and a feather. Well, you don't lose the feather and you can pick up dust anywhere off the ground.
That's the way I would look at it.
So because you don't lose the feather, you don't have to worry about replenishing your spell components. But it'll only matter depending on the DM if you have your spell components taken away from you. Then it matters.
Like you lose your pouch.
Yeah, exactly. So if you have your component pouch stolen from you, or you've been captured and you don't have your component pouch anymore, then no, you can't cast. You can only cast your cantrips. Or any spells that only require verbal and semantic, because not every spell requires materials.
Yeah.
So you would then be limited for the duration until you replenish your stock. But the only ones that really have to worry about that is wizards, because most other classes have something called a implement. So bards have like their instrument counts as an implement towards their spells. Or a druid will have a wand or a tome or a sacred item, and they can cast their spells through that. Same for paladins. Paladins have their holy symbol. So you don't use up the spell components necessarily because you're casting through your holy symbol.
Yeah. But if you were like if a bunch of kobolds took you and stripped you naked and took all your shit, you wouldn't be able to cast certain things.
Yeah, so if you're a paladin and your spell implement is your holy symbol, and you don't have your holy symbol, you might be able to cast your lay on hands, because that is entirely based on you. There's no components to that. But anything that requires components that you're using your implement for, you can't cast.
All right. So guys, we're gonna wrap this up. I appreciate you guys dropping by. We've got 55 likes for the 100 people. Let's see if we can maybe get that to maybe 75 before we end. Just because I don't really do care much about the likes or dislikes. It's just for the algorithm type stuff. But whatever. But Kawasa 5001 are D&D atheist lacktheists. Hell no, they were banned in the 5th edition. Atheist lacktheists are banned officially with good reason. So you cannot be an atheist lacktheist in 5th edition D&D. We make that.
The other way you can contact me, by the way, is just the comment section, but use my channel because I don't get notifications over here. So if you want to contact me to come on to that time of the month, go and comment over on my channel on a video or something. That's fine too. That works. You don't have to be in DMs. It can be public. I don't care.
Techatron says Kyle Curtis's legal argument has 1d 0 damage. I would say that his argument was a critical fumble.
He hurt himself in confusion.
Yes. He needs a critical fumble roll.
He dropped it on and centered on himself.
Absolutely, yes. We can make a whole character based on Kyle.
I already have a character that may or may not show up at some point.
Oh, Peter Harrington promises a new meme coming out soon. That ought to be good.
Ooh. All right, let's get out of here.
All right, let's wrap it up, guys. Appreciate it. Like, subscribe, comment. I haven't been too responsive of comments, and people really message me. I apologize. I don't see it changing in the near future, though, to be honest with you. I have stepped out from trying to respond to everybody who messages me because I just couldn't do it any longer. So, but I mean, obviously I'll try, but if I don't get back to you, it's not personal, and I may have not even seen what you wrote to me, especially if you write me on Facebook or Discord. 50, 90. But and like somebody had mentioned, they wrote me on Discord and said, "Hey, I wrote you on Discord." And I'm like, "Okay, well, when I'm on Discord, I'll check it." With that, guys, thanks. Chesh, got anything else? Words of wisdom, something? Anything?
Spite is the strongest motivator.
I agree. Good night.
Bye.